There's something uniquely unsettling about being alone in the middle of nowhere. The kind of silence where even the smallest sound feels amplified. The kind of darkness that makes you question if you're truly alone. Tonight, I have a story for you about someone who thought they were simply escaping to a quiet cabin in the woods, but what they found was something far more terrifying. Turn off the lights, put on your headphones, and get ready. Because this is a story you won't forget. Asterisk. My name is Tyson. What I'm about to tell you happened a few years ago when I decided to isolate myself in a cabin deep in the forest for a weekend. I've always been the kind of person who appreciates solitude and silence, and after months of exhausting work, this seemed like the perfect way to unwind. I found a place that rented rustic cabins, with no electricity or cell signal, perfect for disconnecting from the world for a few days. The road there was long and winding, with the forest growing denser with every mile. When I finally arrived, I saw that the cabin was exactly like in the photos, small, made of aged wood, with a narrow porch and a single window beside the door. The air was fresh, and the only sounds were the rustling leaves and the distant call of birds. Around me, nothing but trees. No other cabins nearby. Inside, the space was simple: a wooden bed, a small table, a wood stove, and a fireplace. The scent of damp wood filled the air. I lit a few candles and prepared for the night. The sense of isolation was both refreshing and unsettling. The first night, I slept without problems. But on the second, something changed. I woke up in the middle of the night to a noise outside. Something was moving between the trees. It wasn't the sound of a small animal, it was something heavier, deliberate footsteps. My heart pounded. I stayed still, listening. The steps stopped right near the cabin. I thought about turning on a flashlight, but then I realized something even stranger. The darkness outside was thick, but I had the overwhelming feeling that someone, or something, was watching me. An invisible presence, silent. The air inside the cabin felt heavier. A chill ran down my spine. The noise returned, this time moving toward the porch. I slowly got up and approached the window. The glass reflected the weak candlelight, and for a moment, I almost convinced myself that I was just being paranoid. But then, I saw it. In the middle of the darkness, something moved. I couldn't make out an exact shape, but it was tall. Too tall to be an ordinary person. I froze. Suddenly, a dry sound, like something being dragged across the wooden porch. A shiver ran through my body. I took a deep breath and waited. After a few seconds that felt like an eternity, the footsteps moved away, disappearing into the forest. I didn't sleep again that night. I sat on the bed, staring at the door, waiting for any other sound. When the sun rose, I went outside to see if I could find footprints, but the leaf-covered ground showed nothing. No sign that anything, or anyone, had been there. I spent the rest of the day uneasy. I thought about leaving, but the long drive through the forest wasn't something I wanted to risk while exhausted. I convinced myself that my mind was playing tricks on me. But that night, something happened that erased any doubt. I was lying down, trying to sleep, when I heard a loud crack at the door. Like something pressing against the wood. My heart almost stopped. Seconds later, another crack, louder. I jumped out of bed and stood still, trying to hear anything beyond the sound of my own heartbeat. Then, I heard a whisper. Faint, almost imperceptible, but it was there. It came from inside the cabin. I felt my blood run cold. Without thinking twice, I grabbed my backpack, rushed out the door, and ran to my car. I started the engine and sped off without looking back. I didn't care about the dark road or the branches scraping against the car. I just wanted to get out of there. I never found out what really happened in that cabin. I never told this story to anyone until now. All I know is that night, something was in there with me. And it wasn't human. Story 2. My name is Mark. What I'm about to tell you happened a few years ago when I accepted a friend's invitation to spend a weekend at a secluded cabin in the middle of the woods. I've never been a fan of that kind of environment, but he assured me it would be relaxing, a time away from the city and the constant noise. I thought it was worth a try. The drive to the cabin was long, and as we got further away from the main road, the cell phone signal started to drop. My friend Jake was driving and seemed cheerful, but I felt a slight uneasiness growing inside me. The dirt road was uneven and surrounded by tall trees that blocked most of the sunlight. When we finally arrived, the cabin looked much older and more worn than in the photos Jake had shown me. It was a small, dark wooden building with a porch that creaked with every step. The silence around it was almost absolute, except for the distant sound of the wind rustling through the trees. For some reason, that stillness bothered me. We went inside and started packing our things. The interior was simple, with old furniture and a smell of aged wood. Jake built a fire in the fireplace, and for a few hours we talked and drank, trying to enjoy the tranquility. As night fell, the surrounding forest became pitch black. With no electricity, the only light came from the fireplace and a few flashlights we had brought. That was when we started hearing noises. At first, it was just crackling in the woods of the porch. I thought it might be a small animal, maybe a raccoon or a squirrel. But as time went on, the sounds became more distinct. Slow, heavy footsteps, as if someone were circling the cabin. Jake joked about it, saying it was probably my imagination. But then, we heard something that made us freeze. 3 firm knocks on the door. Neither of us moved. We looked at each other in silence, waiting to see if it would happen again. 3 more knocks. Loud. Precise. Jake grabbed a flashlight and, without opening the door, shone the light through the window next door. Nothing. Just the thick darkness between the trees. We stood there, listening for any other sound, but everything suddenly went silent. It was as if whoever was there knew we were listening. After a few tense minutes, we decided it was probably some idiot playing a prank or, in the worst-case scenario, a lost hunter. But even so, we locked all the doors and windows before trying to sleep. I woke up in the middle of the night to a strange sound. Something was scratching on the outside wall of the cabin, right next to my bed. My whole body tensed. The sound was slow and continuous, like nails were sliding against the wood. I wanted to believe it was the wind, but it was too methodical to be just a natural effect. Jake woke up too and whispered to me, "Do you hear that?" I just nodded. We grabbed our flashlights and, in a quick movement, turned on the lights and ran to the window. Nothing. But then, the front door made a noise. Like someone was trying to turn the doorknob. We didn't think twice. We grabbed our backpacks and keys and ran out to the car. As soon as we started the engine and the headlights illuminated the area in front of the cabin, we saw something I will never forget. At the edge of the woods, there was a figure. Tall, thin, completely still. I couldn't see a face, but it was someone, or something, that just stood there, watching us. Jake stepped on the gas and we drove away as fast as we could. We never went back to that cabin. Jake tried to find information about the area later, but there was no record of anyone else reporting anything like it. The owner of the place only said that no one had rented that cabin in years. I don't know who or what was there that night. But I do know that I have never felt comfortable in isolated places since then. Story 3. My name is Deborah. What I'm about to tell you happened a few years ago when I decided to get away from the city for a while and rented a secluded cabin in the middle of the woods. The idea was to spend a few days alone, away from the hustle and bustle, just me, a good book, and nature. But what I found there made me question everything I thought I knew about the world. The cabin was simple, made of dark wood and surrounded by trees so tall they blocked out part of the sky. There were no neighbors nearby, just a dirt trail that led to the main road, about a mile away. At first, I found the silence comforting. No cars, no notifications on my phone, just the sound of the wind and the birds. The first night passed peacefully. I locked the doors, blew out the candles, and went to bed. But around 3 in the morning, something woke me up. A soft sound, like someone walking around the cabin. My heart raced. I held my breath and listened hard. Footsteps. Slow, shuffling. I stopped to think, maybe it was an animal, a deer or a bear, but something told me it wasn't. The footsteps continued for a few minutes and then stopped right next to the wall of my room. I was lying in bed, unable to move, feeling the cold spread through my body. Silence took over the place in a strange way, as if the air itself had stopped. Then, I heard something that chilled me to the bone. A breathing. Heavy, rhythmic, as if someone was right there, outside, just waiting. I closed my eyes and waited. Minutes passed. After a while, the breathing stopped and the footsteps slowly moved away. I didn't sleep again that night. The next day, I tried to convince myself that it was just paranoia. Maybe fatigue was playing tricks on me. But when I went out to collect firewood, something made me stop. On the ground, right next to the window of my room, there were footprints. They were large and deep, as if someone had walked barefoot there. But what made me even more uneasy was that the footprints started there, out of nowhere. There was no sign of where the thing had come from. I thought about leaving, but the idea of driving alone at night on that deserted road made me hesitate. I decided to stay another night. And that was the worst decision I ever made. That night, everything seemed normal until about 2 in the morning. That's when I heard a noise inside the cabin. Something fell to the floor in the kitchen. My body froze. I knew I had locked all the doors and windows. I grabbed my flashlight and, with a shaking hand, pointed it at the bedroom door. It was ajar. I was absolutely certain I had closed it. I gathered my courage, left the bedroom and shined my light into the kitchen. Nothing seemed out of place, until I heard a sound coming from the living room. A soft scratching on the wood, as if something was running its nails across the floor. I wanted to run, but my legs were rooted to the spot. Then the front door made a sound, like someone had slowly run their hand over it. Not a tap, but a slow, careful slide. By this time, I had my car keys in my hand. I ran to the back door and got out without looking back. I got in my car, started the engine, and sped down the dark road, not caring about the potholes or the branches hitting the glass. When I finally reached a gas station in the nearest town, I got out of the car to take a breath. It was then that I noticed something that took my breath away. On the back window of the car, there was a mark. 5 long lines, as if someone had run their fingers across it. I never found out what happened in that cabin. I have never told anyone this story to this day. But one thing I do know, I was not alone in those woods. Some things just can't be explained. The feeling of being watched when no one is there. The sound of footsteps in an empty place. And the marks left behind by something, or someone, that was never supposed to be there. Was it just paranoia? Or was something truly lurking in the shadows? I'll leave that for you to decide. If you enjoyed this story, Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more terrifying experiences. And as always, stay safe out there. You never know what's watching.